Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm your host, John Connors. I'm also the founder and head instructor of Connors Martial Arts. We're here in Norwood, Massachusetts. We teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai kickboxing, mixed martial arts. Give us a call, reach out to us, come on in, join our tribe, and we'll make your life 37.6% better. We'll reduce your waist size, we'll increase your height, improve your posture, we'll grow your hair, we'll soften your skin.
And make you a little more disagreeable.
We'll teach you how to be a little bit more disagreeable, which Dan thinks people will like you better if you're more disagreeable.
Yeah, I decided I've been too agreeable lately.
Yeah, you
lately,
struggle with
the
that,
last
Dan,
5,
a lot,
10
right?
years.
Yeah.
I think I've been trying to hide my disagreeable, and it's been a mistake.
Mm.
So now I'm going to be more disagreeable. Also, people, so lately, it came up in the last, for those, I know everyone listening listens to every episode from start to finish religiously.
At least once, yeah.
But yeah, several times, ideally, to catch each time you listen, you catch something new. That's what I've heard people say.
Yeah,
in the
when
reviews.
I watched the Big Lebowski, the Coen Brothers movie,
Right.
when I first watched it in the theaters, I wasn't that impressed, although I was really anticipating the movie. I was slightly disappointed, believe it or not. But every time I've watched it since, and I probably watched it 50 times, I've enjoyed it more. And I've picked up some little nuance. So that's what our podcast
like any
is
fine
like.
art, like this podcast, you listen to it again, you're like, oh, I didn't even catch that the first time.
It's a lot of
like good comedy, too. You're
Shakespeare,
just like, oh,
yeah.
oh
You
I
got
did- I
something
missed
for
that
everybody.
one.
You got the lowbrow humor, and you got sophisticated.
Right. You mean lowbrow on your side and sophisticated.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, Shakespearean. I think a lot of people have commented that about our podcast.
That's the typical analogy I hear. Yeah.
It's very Shakespearean.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult sometimes to understand all the nuance, but worth it.
Definitely. Yeah.
So anyway, is that lowbrow to call us Shakespearean?
No, that's fine. That's perfect. Yeah, that nails it.
So I'm going to be a little more disagreeable now. So last episode, it came out that Dimitri thinks we're disagreeable.
Right.
You think I'm disagreeable. I think everyone agreed. Everyone here is disagreeable. By the way, I think Dimitri's disagreeable.
No, I disagree with you.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it back at him.
I think Dimitri is.
See, you're being because I'm more disagreeable than you.
I think Dimitri is slightly agreeable.
No, I'm not.
No? What are you, average? Average. I think you're very close to average.
And I got feedback after the episode.
Yeah?
That they were like, oh, I'm glad to see you guys realize you're disagreeable.
Who gave you that feedback?
Who do you think? Take one guess.
Your wife?
No. No, my wife.
I don't know.
No, she could think that, actually. But
I don't know who.
Someone disagreeable from the academy. Self-proclaimed disagreeable.
My son? Rory? No.
Is he self-proclaimed?
I think so, yeah.
Amanda.
Oh, yeah.
She's self-proclaimed disagreeable, so I'm not throwing her under the bus here.
Okay. Amanda McQuade?
Yeah. She said, I'm glad to see you guys both came to a realization that you're disagreeable. But I denied it.
You deny it, yeah.
I still deny it.
Well, so, all right now, Dan,
But
we
now
have
I'm
3
feeling
votes. We have Dimitri saying
I
you're
know.
disagreeable. I'm saying you're disagreeable. Amanda McQuade is saying you're disagreeable.
I know. And I've come to the conclusion
Yeah.
I'm going to embrace it. I'm like,
Okay.
I've been trying too much to be nice to people. Because my feeling is this, when people are like, you're disagreeable, I'm like, you think this is disagreeable?
You don't understand what I'm holding back.
Exactly.
You're like, I have these reins.
Exactly.
The horses are straining against
It's like the hole in the dam that I'm like frantically plugging it all the time. Like, you think this is disagreeable?
Huh.
Like, first of all, it's like you should have seen me in younger years being much more disagreeable. And then also, even then I was holding it back. So now I'm thinking about letting it loose. What do you think?
That's very interesting. Well, I
don't see any downside, honestly.
I've heard
Who cares?
research that when men get into a significant relationship, like an exclusive relationship, their testosterone tends to go down. Then when they have kids, it goes down again.
Right.
But now your kids are kind of getting to that. You're getting close to that empty nest situation. Maybe your testosterone's popping back up.
That could be it.
Yeah.
I actually, you know what? My life seems to reflect that.
Yeah.
Because I was a maniac like a lot of people. But I think through my early 20s, say. Like most of us were, but I think mine was definitely pretty maniacal. It
Okay.
depends. This subject's weird because whenever you talk about this, you don't know where anyone listening comes from, like what their definition of being a maniac is.
Yeah, it's relative.
Yeah. So you see sometimes, a lot of times people be like, I was a maniac too. And then you realize like they didn't do anything. You know, they're like, one time I had these glasses of wine, you know, and you're like, okay, you didn't do anything. Your definition. Or people I went to college with were like, remember the days when we were all crazy? And I'm usually like, yeah, I remember you. You didn't do anything. Like you had one night that was like all my nights. Do you know what I mean? Like and you think you were crazy. But then you have the other time, the other side, where you're like, oh, I was a maniac in my 20s. And they'll be like, oh, me too. And then soon they're telling stories. They're like, oh, I got this 40-pound shipment of weed. And I'm like, 40 pound, did you say? You know, and they're like, oh, and I always carried a gun. And then I went to prison. And I'm like, oh, wait, okay. You know, like backpedaling quickly, like,
scale.
okay, yeah, not me. No, I didn't do any. That's not me. So I want to acknowledge that when I say, either of us talk about behavior, you don't know who's listening, like what they mean, or what they're thinking. So I just mean high energy person that went out a lot and had little misadventures, but little, right? You know, like sort of harmless. Then I got married and it was suddenly like, I still didn't change that much. Then I had kids and I made a conscious decision. The kids was the big one where it was like, I'm going to stop all of this. But what I realized is and maybe you had the same thing, when I tried to stop bad behavior, it carried to like everything where I started feeling really uncomfortable about any confrontation almost. Like it's like a neighbor would get mad at me and I'd feel like, oh, I feel really awkward and I feel really bad. And it's like made me soft. So I think you might be right about, I never thought of it as a dropping of testosterone, but like I had a feud with a neighbor that got mad at me. And I was like, I realized like if they were in the driveway, I would wait before I went up to my car. Cause I'm like, I don't want to have another run in with them. And I would sit there and think, man, a few years ago, I wouldn't have cared at all. I would have just gone out and laughed at them or given them the finger and get, you know, like, and I realized I was getting more and more sensitive, and the society we live in will keep telling you, you're getting better, right? Like that you'll get only reinforcement for that.
Yeah.
For what you're like, that's better. You stopped doing all these things. Like the softer and basically less testosterone you have, society tells you is better, right? Like
right
it's like,
now, that's kind of the trend.
Yeah. It's like the softer you are, the better. I don't want to get on a tangent, but I was thinking about that. We might have mentioned it before, that any conflict you have, like, so I had a little traffic run-in again, you know, one of these traffic run-ins. And I realized like, literally if a guy came out of the car and like broke my window and I got out and fought with them, witnesses would be like, well, they both fought. Like there's this idea that the only way you're good is the less testosterone you have. Like, did you cower? And did you cower and cry? He's the good guy. The other guy's the bully, right? Like you cowered and cried. You're good.
Yeah.
If someone like if you're sitting there by yourself in a bar, and someone walks up and says some obnoxious stuff to you, or even to your wife or to your girlfriend, and you start mouthing off back, and you're saying mean stuff back, and you're running your mouth, and something erupts, everyone will say you both did it, right? He said this. He was being rude, but you didn't both do it. One guy walked up to you and started it. This is like a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah,
that like
I get
society's become you're only the good guy if you're soft and weak.
Now, Dan, is part of that just because when there's some level of violence, people get so overwhelmed that their faculties leave them and they can't even discern what's happening?
I would say, for sure, when there's violence, people get in like a panic and they can't even see straight. They'll pass out. Yeah. Like literally you could start throwing punches and probably 3 people will faint, even if they were weak punches. Like, do you know what I mean? Like
I heard this story. So this is, you know, a secondhand story. One of the guys who trains with us is a police officer, and he got called on a scene. And when he arrived, they said this guy attacked this woman, and security guard was there also. The security guard said, the woman said, this guy attacked me. The security guard said, yeah, he attacked her and he started fighting her, and we called the cops and we tried to stop it and everything. And our friend here, the cop, he said, oh, do you have cameras? And they said, yeah, we have cameras. Let's go look at the video. And when they looked at the video, what happened was the guy opened the door for the woman, and the woman had been attacked at some prior time, so she had some kind of PTSD situation. So as she walked by him, she had an episode and thought she was being attacked, and the guy didn't even touch her. So she started attacking the guy. And then the security guard witnessed it, and he, like you said, he was so flummoxed
Just a panic.
that he thought, yeah, this guy attacked this woman. And then when he showed the video to the victim, the woman and the security guard, they both were like, oh my God, that's what happened. So the guy didn't get arrested. There's no charges. But if there wasn't for
no
that
video, you're dead.
Yeah.
And I think, and from what I've seen, people just panic and they'll start naming the wrong people, and they'll start. And there's actually studies on this too, like psychological studies where witnesses are horrible. They'll just say they'll point to the wrong person, or they'll describe someone completely incorrectly. We did when I was
memory's tricky that way, right?
Way back. Well, some people. I think most people. I refuse to believe that my memory would be that bad. But
here's what I had an episode, Dan, when I was competing last in my finals match. I submitted the guy with 1 second left in the match with a rear naked choke, but I had remembered it that I was on top of the guy and he was face down. And then when I watched the video, at the last second, he spun over and we were on our back, and I got to tap when I was on my back.
So that's only 1 second different, but you're saying you remembered this clear memory of
I don't remember going to my back to finish, which felt sort of strange to me.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's not a huge discrepancy.
It's only 1 second.
Yeah.
But unless you're if the weirdness is you have a clear memory of him being face down when he tapped. And
I think I did, but if you think about it, our body orientation didn't really change, and I'm so focused on the choke that if you just flip over, it's not that relevant which way I'm facing, so I don't have to focus on that.
We did way back when I was in graduate school, we did a study this is sort of a random group of people, for a psychology class.
Yeah.
It was class, say 60 kids. And since we were grad students, we could blend in with the students. So a friend of mine, they did this thing. So one friend of mine was teaching. One friend of mine pretended to be a student in the class. And with 60 kids, they didn't notice he was a plant. And he pretended to get furious over the scores of a exam, and made some big thing where he started complaining. Then it escalated. He started screaming and yelling, and tipped over a table and threatened the professor and stormed out. Then the next class, they said, okay, we're going to bring in people who you've got to name who did it, and how sure you are. And I was one of the fake people that they brought in. Tons of people pointed at me as the one who did it. I was
get that guilty look.
Or I just look like someone who might do something like that. But
so these people witnessed the actual event.
They saw it happen.
And
the guy did not look like me. The only good thing about it is the guy was better looking than me. So I'm kind of happy about that. But other than that, it was it's just so weird to stand there.
What was the difference in your appearance?
It's hard to explain. He was a little bit bigger. He's a Midwestern kind of, he had brown hair, which I had at the time, but he was also he was bigger. I'd say he was about, he had 40 pounds on me, something like that. He's just a bigger,
but you have
strapping
that
mean
look
guy
on your face all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was I don't know. He looked different, It's hard to explain because we had similar hair color, and he was just a bit bigger and just looked different. His face looked different than mine. And it was just weird to stand there and see, they said, who is going to vote, who thinks it's him, and to see all these hands go up, and then be keep your hand up if you're sure it's him, levels. And there was people, a dozen kids with I'm sure it's him.
Do you remember, did you get more votes than the actual perpetrator? Or close?
I honestly can't remember.
But you were still stunned at how
it
you
might have even been
misidentified.
a thing where they never brought in the real guy to trick. I can't quite remember. It's been a while. Yeah, but I know that of the people that came in, I got the most votes.
That must be a horrifying feeling if you're in a lineup and you're innocent and people start picking you out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I
That's
got to see it
horrifying.
happen to me,
Yeah.
which is kind of a rare thing to see.
In
And
an
then
experiment.
an experiment. Think if it happened in reality, you'd be sitting there going, "You idiot!" Like, I didn't.
Must be
But I bet that
horrible.
happens all the time, where people
Yeah.
are staring right at you, going, "That's definitely him."
Yeah.
I was right there. I saw it. That's him.
Did you get stressed out? Do you remember in college when that happened?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, I'm a low stress guy in general. I thought it was funny. And back then I was like maniacally low stress.
So to get
Nothing
back to
stressed
where
me
this
out
all
back then.
started, Dan, you were saying that there's sort of this push for against what they characterize as toxic masculinity,
Right.
and they want men to be softer.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
it's creeped into like the law, I think now.
It's
So
the law.
you were saying, what I mean is this. What you were saying is like if there's a fight, people blank and go crazy. And I've seen
Okay.
that a lot. And they don't know what they're saying. They'll accuse the wrong people. They'll say someone started it that didn't.
Okay.
But I think even without fighting, like without the panic of the physical confrontation, which as a quick aside for that, there's a real problem if you're a police officer now, because, and you can see videos online where like a police officer basically has to use force and everyone freaks out. Like, why did you have to do that? And it's like, well, the person wouldn't comply. Should he let them go? And I'm not saying, again, this is a deeper issue. Sometimes they overuse force. We all know that. But you see that same principle where someone won't comply and it's like, well, why is he touching him? Why is there, like, people start to panic and freak out when any physicality is involved. And it's like, he had to. But anyway, even without the physical violence, I think, like, if someone came up to you, picture that bar scene with no fighting, but someone comes up and insults your wife and you just start aggressively letting them have it, like verbally, you know, like you start really because also I can be mean as hell too, verbally. A lot of us can, but if you start like ripping into somebody that came up and insulted you, people will be like, "Oh, they both did it."
I hear what you're saying.
Couple of assholes, right? And it's like, well, it wasn't. One guy, I was sitting there like,
People are weak. They don't want to take sides because that takes energy and there could be consequences. If I take your side, then the other guy might be mad at me. He might come after me. If I just take no side, that's the best for me, which is kind of weak.
I think a lot of people like, that's a good point too. I think a lot of people think it's the best thing to be like, I don't know, like I'm not part of this. It's almost like valued, right? To be like, I don't know what
people
happened.
spin it as it's the more noble perspective. You know, a couple could get divorced. They're like, we're not taking sides. Nobody's at fault here, which could be the case. Or one person could really, really be at fault. So why would you not quote unquote, pick sides?
I guess
then?
that's what you're saying. Like, it's lazy, right? Because
It's
we're not
self-serving
saying
and
you
lazy,
you should take a side, because there's plenty of times you don't need to, and there's plenty of times. Let me be clear about that too. A lot of times, like there's fights in stadiums or bars. Very often they are both at fault. Very often that is right. Like, well, they both were a couple of assholes, and
It's the whole spectrum, right?
That often is true, but I think people go to that when it's not true. Is what I'm saying. When you should take a side when one person was at fault.
Now, here, Dan, you've just expressed your kind of pet peeve.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what do you call it? The softening or this push for men to be softer. Is that your pet peeve?
Yeah, but in this specific thing, because there's time, you know, that sounds sort of,
Or not picking a side. Is that your pet peeve?
yeah, it's they're combined, but also that sounds like I'm saying like some kind of tough guy thing of like guys should be more man. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's sometimes right to be to stand up to people, and it's right to be. And if someone starts with you and you respond, you're not just as at fault as the other person, which is what our kids are taught in school from day one now. Like my kids were, I'm sure your kids and my kids were taught that they're told the same. They're all told the same thing, which is if someone does something mean to you and you do it back, you're as bad as them, which is nonsense. Like, you're not as bad as them.
Yeah.
They did it to you.
Yeah.
So, you know, and kids are taught that now. And now we've got a generation that's grown up hearing that. So they all think that. And it makes...
there's a lot of nonsense out there. It reminds me a little bit of that. Didn't Gillette, the razor company, come out with sort of like a toxic masculinity commercial a couple Super Bowls ago?
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah. That
And
got some.
I remember a
negative feedback.
little scene where like these two little kids were roughhousing in the grass at a barbecue,
Yeah.
and I think the father had to go over there and like separate them. Don't you ever roughhouse?
Yeah.
So bizarre.
That's what
Crazy.
I'm saying about. So
Yeah.
that's another way to encapsulate at least a big chunk
And
of my
then
pet peeve.
and the
like,
message from Gillette is, hey men, you're doing a shitty job. You're not doing a good enough job. You're creating violent boys. And I heard somebody, I think it was Jordan Peterson, reference research that's the opposite.
Right.
So in households where boys grow up without a father, they're statistically way more violent than
Right.
when they grow up with a father. So the fathers aren't making kids more violent.
Yeah.
If anything, they're making them more stable. So just nonsensical.
And I guess again, I'm sure you agree with this. There's such a thing as toxic masculinity. It involves being mean.
No,
and being,
I totally disagree. I
Well,
think
depends how
there's,
you define it. I mean,
I disagree, Dan. I believe there's bad behavior. Why would you define it as masculine
I
behavior?
see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, anybody can do bad behavior, whatever their sex is. So once you start going down that road, you're just going down a wrong road. It's just not the way to look at things.
I would say, yeah, but it's the word used if you're behaving badly in a way that's involves masculinity or being like.
No, you could say more men than women tend to do this bad behavior.
Right.
That's fine, but is that how you want to frame bad behavior as according to some sex? I mean, the problem with that, Dan, is then people start thinking the masculinity part is wrong. They get away from the bad behavior is what's wrong.
Right,
Do
which
you
is what's
follow me?
happened. Which is exactly what's happened.
Yeah, so then if you're a man, you're wrong because men are toxic. Like that's where that line of thinking leads. It's just a really wrong way to think of things. Behavior is bad because it's bad. You know what I mean? Like mansplaining is really just being condescending, and being
Right.
condescending isn't attached to any sex.
Right.
And if that's bad behavior,
And what
it's
you're
bad
saying
behavior.
too is even if men do it more,
even if men do
don't
it more,
attach it
right,
in that way, and
right, because you can go down a really bad path with that.
or
thinking.
down the path. That's I guess what I'm saying.
But you can go down even a worse
Yeah.
path. You could say, "Oh, what bad behavior do people from Walpole do, or something?" You could
Yeah.
start just creating categories of so-called bad behavior, and then whoever's in that category is a bad person because of that bad behavior.
Right.
And you can imagine the different categories and demographics you could come up with. It's just not a good idea. It's not a good way to think of things, and then it puts people on the defensive too. If you say such and such behavior is bad, then people can refrain from the behavior. You know what I mean? But
Right.
if you're saying you're bad because you do this, then people are going to go, "No, I'm not." And they get defensive.
And you get like direct lashing back,
Of course,
where it's
yeah.
like not to get on too much of a tangent, but I feel like a good example that's happened is on the environment, where I think I don't know what a vast majority of people understand they don't want a dirty planet, right?
We don't want a dirty planet. We
but-
don't want a overheated
Right.
planet. Yeah.
Right.
Or
But it's been
whatever, yeah.
attacked in such a way that a bunch of people just lash back and they become like almost like, yeah,
How
that's
dare you.
idea. Yeah, but people attack in that, like,
Oh.
how dare you way? But then you get people like, I'm going to throw this stuff on the ground. I'm going to drink out of a straw.
Oh, you
Like,
think people
they start, like-
deliberately litter more or pollute more?
I don't know if they pollute more, but you get people sort of sneering at the idea of a clean planet instead of everyone getting on the page going, look, we all agree with this. We all agree we should
Oh,
clean it
right.
up. And you get people like, instead of on the same page, they start being like environmentalists. Ugh, I hate them. And it's like they're lashing back because of the way you approached it. You approached it in this accusing way, so I'm lashing back. Sort of like you're saying you did this accusing about masculinity and people lash back and they're like, screw you. And they don't want to listen to any of it. They don't want to listen to any.
Well, I think if you attack a person, they naturally will defend themselves, right? So then they get defensive. So, so that's part of that. I think it's not a healthy.
Attacking groups or
Concept.
people versus attacking just behavior.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I'll stand on that. Yeah, bad behavior is bad, but I don't want to start coming up with demographics of in attributing behaviors to certain demographics, even if they happen to do those behaviors more. I don't think it's a good way to approach things. I don't think it's a good way to change behavior either.
Yeah.
Oh, so that brings me to one of my pet peeves.
Right.
If we're doing the airing of pet peeves.
This is the pet peeve episode.
Pet peeve episode. Tell me if this has ever happened to you. This has happened to me so often. And Dimitri, it just might be evidence of my disagreeability. But
Airline food.
no, here's what happens. I'll have some minor conflict in my life with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll be telling a friend, like a spouse or a girlfriend or something, about a conflict I had with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And this friend will start brainstorming why I'm probably wrong and the other person is probably correct. They start brainstorming why, the person is probably not wrong. And then I say, wait a minute, you didn't witness the event. You don't know the other person at all. All you have is what I'm telling you, and you're somehow brainstorming to show that I'm wrong and the other person is right.
And almost as like a reflex, right? Like it's like you
reflex.
can see them. You can see the gears turning. Like they're thinking, "Why is he wrong?"
They're like a Madison Avenue executive thinking of ways why I'm
You're
wrong.
like, I never even saw you think this this quick.
They're
and
using all their powers of creativity to find out why I'm wrong, and I feel like saying, couldn't you be applying that energy to something more productive than why I'm wrong? Does that ever happen to you, Dan?
Yes,
it does. Dimitri, does that ever happen to you?
No.
Why is that happening? It drives me crazy. I want to take my head and smash it into a wall when somebody does that.
Yeah,
They'll literally not know the other person, not witness the events, and and then they start having a pretty firm opinion that I'm wrong.
Do you feel this? And maybe I got to think.
I asked somebody about this who did this to me recently. I said, "Why do you think you're doing that?" And they thought it's because they're agreeable. This person was very agreeable, and they said, I tend to side with the underdog, and you seem like you're not the underdog in these situations. So I just start assuming.
I think it's, well, first of all, was this person a man or a woman?
Does that matter, Dan?
Yes.
Now you're doing what we just said you shouldn't do.
Well, no, I can relate it back. I won't.
Okay.
So it was a woman. I think it's related to what we said before. It is like it's masculine. Like you seem angry and on the attack, and it's like, I need to stop this attack. Like at some base level is like, John is pissed off and he's going after someone. I don't like that. Like I need to defend it. I need to
calm him down.
Yeah, it'll calm him down, but that's a nicer way. You know what I mean? It's not just calm down. It's like it actually becomes defending the other person. It becomes like, I don't like this is the aggressive. This is the aggression. I have to go. I knee-jerk go against the aggression.
Well, I brought this up to my son, Rory, and he goes, oh, yeah, I do that with you all the time. And he was like,
Does he?
unapologetic. That's what he says. I don't really remember him doing it that much. I think I remember. And then I brought it up to Nguyen, and he goes, oh, yeah, I do that all the time. And he was like proud to do it. So I don't know what the hell that means.
I don't think I do it. Do you do that?
I don't do it. No. Why would I do
so.
that? Yeah.
Because
And
also,
all I want is somebody to nod their head and go, yeah, that's a bummer. What a shitty situation.
I could just.
I don't
picture
need
you
any
You're just like
solutions.
you're just telling you like I can't. I got in this conflict. Like it's like me
It's
saying
like somebody at the cash register, and they didn't give me the right change back. I was trying to explain, they didn't understand.
Well, actually, you're right. That's a good example because it can be something as innocent as that.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, yeah, well, it's hard on the cash register. And you're like, would you shut the hell up? Like, I'm just trying to tell you.
They had something else going on that day. And I'm like, what do you?
I don't need that.
Yeah.
That's funny. When you put it that way, I realize it happens to me all the time. When you're just
All
trying
the time.
Yeah, when you're just trying to tell some story like, well, I was at that intersection and someone cut me off and they flipped me off when they were totally the wrong one. And immediately it'll be like, yeah, well, that's a tough intersection. And I could see maybe they thought you. And I'm like, could you just,
What's
someone
that
flipped
all
me
about,
off in
man?
traffic and I'm complaining. Just be like, yeah, people are, I don't even need you to say anything.
Right.
Like, it's just like, I'm
Yeah.
just venting some steam about this. And you're like aggravating me.
Yeah.
Is this
It aggravates me. And it makes me start thinking, what image of me do they have that they imagine that I'm just walking through the world creating conflict and I'm in the wrong 100% of the time.
That's why I relate it back to what I said before. I think there's some people that are like, if you're angry, it's like I have to be like, it makes them almost angry. It makes them like, you should stop that. Like you're saying, this cashier was such a pain in the ass. And they're like, maybe you need to, like it becomes an immediate, like maybe you need to consider
Seems reflexive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's reflexive. That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. I thought it was interesting that I think I hear what you're saying, but maybe it's an agreeability thing. I don't know. What do you think, Dimitri? Do you have any thoughts on this? Does this happen to you?
I think people always try to rationalize everything. So,
they want an answer.
yeah.
That makes sense.
Like,
That's a
why
good
did
point.
it happen?
Yeah, why did it happen? And the answer, they don't want the answer of that other person's an idiot. They don't like that answer.
But I also think
I'm very comfortable with that answer.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. That's usually the answer.
Yeah.
But also if you have some, I don't mean to keep, I'm only accidentally bringing this back, but if you have some testosterone and aggression, especially if the person you're talking to doesn't have that as much, like
Maybe it makes them nervous.
They're going to be like, but also like, why did that happen to you? Like why they're like, I didn't get mad at someone in traffic and you got mad at someone in traffic twice this month. And it's like, maybe it's because like you or I are more ready to be pissed off. Like maybe someone cuts you off and you and I get pissed and they don't. And so they're sort of like, why is this happening to you? And they start trying to explain it in that way. Like, why are you mad? Because I don't get mad in traffic. I don't have a trouble with the cashier. And it's like, but for us, we're like, well, you should have. Do you know what I mean? Like you should have. That cashier was annoying. Like they were rude to you, and they're like, oh, it's fine. And so it's like, maybe this also is this is the disagreeability episode.
I think so.
Of the podcast, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but they don't have it, so they're like they don't see it, and they're like, oh, you're just. And so then when you tell your story about being mad at the cashier, they're like, well, maybe and they start explaining it. When from our perspective, they're like, well, you're wrong. You should have been mad at the cashier.
The only thing that's worse, Dan, is when the other party telling me that I'm being unreasonable actually knows the person. So I say, like, I've had this terrible experience with this person. The person did this, this, and this. They behaved unethically, immorally, way out of line. They did this. And the response, I guess, is, well, they've always been nice to me.
Yeah.
That drives me bananas. That is like the most self-centered, weird way to look at the world,
Yeah.
I've never had a conflict with them, so my experience counts for nothing in your book. That drives me nuts when I get that. So yeah, I don't know.
And I've also, and like you said, or the other thing where you're like, this person really wronged me in these ways, and one level less bad than that, but is like, I'm not taking a side. Like, what do you mean I'm taking a side? Like this person stole from me.
Right.
And they're like, I'm not taking a side. Like, you're not taking a side from someone that stole from me? Like,
if I hear that, I'm like, well, I'm taking a side.
Yeah.
And it's not on your side.
Yeah.
You're out of my tribe.
Way back a long time ago, I had that with a bunch of friends. I'm going to blur the details on this, but it was like someone I was out with said something real, like, so I was out with a friend and another friend said something really nasty to me that made things uncomfortable between me and this other friend, if you can follow that. So I was with an old friend, and then another friend said something really, like to put a wedge between me and the other friend.
Let me clarify, please, Dan. Yeah. So are there three people in the same place at one time?
Yes.
You're out at night having a drink
There was a bunch of people out.
You're all out having a couple of drinks. So you're standing next to a friend.
Yeah. And
a third person says something to put a wedge between you and your friend.
And it was really sort of personal and bad. Like it was. I'm going to blur the details on purpose, but it was basically like if they said like, "Hey, this guy, like, you treat this guy like crap. Like you treat your friend like crap." And
who's he addressing there?
Like, say this person talking to me, saying, "You treat him like crap, but he follows you around like a puppy dog."
Ooh,
like putting me in a really awkward spot. Like, and like, just like, and drinks involved and just like coming after me, and me just like backing him off, like by saying some, like just saying something like, "Hey, what, like, why?"
I know what you're talking about.
But just sort of like, or even like, like, you get nasty when you drink. Like, why don't you, maybe you should watch how much you drink. So I snapped something back. And then the person that I snapped back at got like really upset because I snapped back at them. And all the friends around were like, either I'm not taking sides, or like, hey, you really upset that person when you snapped back at them. And like, it was the same thing. It was like, either I'm not taking sides, or you're in the wrong because they're more upset. And I'm like, I'm sorry that I'm stronger, and that like their insults bounced off me.
Sorry,
and
I'm better at insulting people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, sorry that I won that exchange. Like, but that's how I feel about, like, it's back to the same theme.
Funny.
It's like, if someone comes up to you in a bar and starts some crap, picture if you won the fight. Like, if a fight broke out and you won, they'd be like, he's a brute. Like, he won that, like.
Yeah, I think probably
they would just see the image of you winning and be like, or let's take it away from people. I might have used this example with you before, where I have a Great Dane, so he's a big dog. For those of you who don't know that a Great Dane is a big dog, I can't help you. So like, but my wife was walking my Great Dane, and a dog came charging out from a house, this aggressive dog, and just attacked the Great Dane.
It was off leash.
Off leash. Yeah, just no one there. Like,
what kind of dog, Dan? So we have a perspective here.
It was a German short hair pointer.
German short hair.
Most people don't know what that is, but that's,
so it's like a 40-pound dog?
50, 60.
50, 60. Okay.
But
they're athletic dogs.
It's a lot smaller than the Great Dane.
Yeah.
And
but it's
bit him,
still
like, it was a real attack.
Dangerous. Yeah.
And you can't, if you're by yourself with a dog, you can't stop a dog attack because your dog strains on the leash
right.
and you're behind the leash. Like, you can't.
It's the whole thing.
Yeah. So the dog attacked my dog, and my dog's a sweetheart, but he won the fight. Like, he grabbed the dog. He's much bigger, and he threw it down. He had on the ground. The dog starts yelping.
Okay. So
then people run out and they're like, get your dog's got my dog. Like, get your dog, and like yelling at my wife, and like, and some, and another witness is like, oh yeah, well, did that thing of the exact example I'm talking about. Well, both dogs, like, well, that dog attacked, but the other dog, your dog did fight back. It's a perfect example of what I'm saying. We can take it away from, because people might get weirded out when you're talking about people or bars. They might
it's pretty clear. One dog's
this is
on
just
a leash,
dogs,
and one's not on a leash.
And one ran and bit the other one.
Yeah, so you're out.
And people still. So take it away from people, where they might, when they hear stories about people, they might think, yeah, but guys that fight in bars, or get caught up in some story in their head. This is dogs. It's very straightforward. One dog ran out, bit my dog threw it down and won the fight. People still were like, well, both dogs fought, and both dogs. And then some people were even like, well, the big dog had the other dog down, and like was like, the fact that he was winning made them like, he's kind of in the wrong.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And I've even told that story, what I just told, to people.
Mm-hmm.
Some listeners are probably hearing that story and actually thinking, well, both dogs fought, and yours won.
I think
it's like, it's crazy to me. I don't understand it.
I think it's that underdog thing. I think people, I think they've done some research where people are watching sports and they have no affiliation to the teams, and something like 70 or 75% of people will root for the underdog when they have no other affiliation. And then the corresponding 20, 25% or 30 root for overdog. I think it's probably 75-25. And it's just,
but I could root for an underdog. Like, I think I might do that. Like, if I'm watching college basketball, say, right, like the tournament, I'll say, oh, I hope they upset them.
Yeah, it's more exciting.
But that's different. There's no moral component there. Like, this has actual moral right and wrong.
I hear you, but I wonder if it's somehow related. But
I think it is. I think people are missing the moral right and wrong.
Yeah.
And like, they're overwhelmed by the underdog idea. Or that thing of like, again, aggression is bad. Like, they just have like simple level rules. Like, aggression is bad, and
that might be
I don't like
some
to see aggression. Whoever won is bad.
Evolutionary basis for that, where if somebody is going around killing everybody, even if he's in the right, he starts to become dangerous. And it's almost like a balance of power thing, maybe. I don't know. Interesting.
Anyway, this is
people should take sides, is what you're saying. We're not taking sides enough.
Yeah, I way back that story I told about.
People should be taking my side more.
The story, yeah, take sides as long as it's on my side. That's the one caveat I should add to this. That's the important addition. as long as it's my side. But I've actually said that for a long time about taking sides. It annoyed me. That story I told about when I made the person cry and like no one took my side, and I was like, that was really straightforward. Who started it? And
You made the guy cry?
I made the girl cry.
Girl cry.
So,
Got it.
so you can see why it's even worse for
All
me.
right. Yeah.
Now I lost all my.
You
all
are
my-
in the
all
wrong.
my sympathy.
Yeah.
But she attacked
Let
me.
me
and I-
brainstorm why she was right.
Yeah.
Uh.
But just to read, I didn't she attacked.
I
She
get it.
put this thing, and I said, "Hey, why don't you watch you? Well, yeah, you drank too much." Blah, blah. She started crying, and then now, but you can more easily picture that people automatically. She cried, so everyone ran in to defend her and glare at me and be like, "You're the worst." And you know,
Well,
like, and I
you
was
didn't
like,
say crying because they say that in humans, when an adult cries, they somehow trigger a parent-child circuit in the nervous system.
that's what it's for, right?
Yeah.
That's why we cry,
Yeah,
for sympathy. It triggers
Yeah.
sympathy.
triggers it. Yeah, but it triggers specifically parent-child dynamics. Like when you start crying, you're like the child, and then the parent's like, "Oh, I got to take care of this person. I got to pat them on the back, make them feel better, or whatever." Yeah.
Right. And everyone and so now you also see why it was like you're automatically the bad guy because here you've got someone
Yeah.
crying,
Yeah.
and you're sitting here with a beer in your hand and you're fine. And
Dan,
like,
if I had a nickel for every time you made me cry,
how much would you have? I don't think you'd have that much.
that's pretty good, Dan. I get it. I get your pet peeve. I get it.
Well, I'm not sure anyone's ever made me cry. So, like, if you think about that, right? Has that a person ever made you cry? Never.
No.
I mean, not since childhood, right?
No. Yeah, I think I've had people crying on me in front of me, but yeah, I don't think I made them cry, but yeah.
Even on the mat. I think you've made me cry. I think we've had a few roles where you made me cry.
You
but
welled up in tears? Yeah, maybe.
you didn't know. I was just like, I got to get a drink of water.
Something in my eye.
Yeah, you poke me. I got a poke in the eye.
All right, Dan. I got a new T-shirt. I brought it for you,
Look
man.
at that. This is one of our
Size
most disagreeable episodes.
This is our most disagreeable episode. Yep.
Was
Dimitri's
this our
nodding
most
his head.
disagreeable episode? So that's pretty good.
I think so, yeah.
But that's exactly, I'm happy because that's what I'm saying. I want to embrace it. I want to
think we
embrace being
embraced it.
disagreeable.
I think we aired our grievances.
I say this for people that didn't like the episode. I don't care.
Screw you.
Yeah, screw you. Sticking with the theme of the episode.
I think we've demonstrated in this episode that we are definitely disagreeable
Yeah,
people.
if you don't like it, that's fine.
Well, that being said, here's our new shirt, Dan. It's got our
It's similar to the one you're wearing. Is that fair to say?
yeah. It's exactly the one I'm wearing. So it's got our Connors logo on the chest. I think it's understated. Sometimes the shirt's a little bit louder. This is a little
And
bit
what's on the back?
softer. On the back is the ancient Greek word ARETE, which means excellence. And the idea that I'm trying to promote here is everyday excellence. Excellence for every day. Excellence for everyone. Here you go, sir.
Oh, I get it.
You get it, yeah.
So let
Right
me
for you, bro.
now, since I got it,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something that I like about it a lot.
All right.
I like so different people like different
Yeah.
things in t-shirts. So
Yeah.
you've had different kinds
Yeah.
of t-shirts. I like understated. I sort
Yeah.
of like not too slogan. Like I feel like
Right.
if I'm out, like say at the
You don't want to
gym
be
or
a
in public,
billboard, right?
maybe I don't want like a whole people reading stuff down my back. Some
Yeah.
people like it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I like sort of quieter, like not drawing
ya.
attention.
I hear you.
So you have both. The gym has both types.
Right.
of-
Last year, I probably made the loudest shirt we ever had. It's a beautiful shirt. I think I had it on yesterday. It has that logo in full color, but pretty large in the front, red and gold and white, and then in the back it said what would a world champ do
Right.
in big letters. So it's about as loud as it gets,
Yeah,
right?
I think I have one of those.
Yeah. But
We
it's
should
a
have one
beautiful
that just
shirt.
says disagreeable on the back.
We should get that. Yeah.
I don't
Disagreeable.
mind it.
Yeah.
I could wear that.
Yes.
Disagreeable? That's not bad, man. That could be a brand.
Be inspirational for you. Yeah.
And
Well-
disagreeable, and then it has disagreeable things, disagreeable quotes.
I like it. Well, I'm working on brands now, Dan. That's my next thing, coming up with a
And
brand.
don't you have, since we're like, now this has become the pitch, like now you can order a lot of these shirts, right? I saw that. You
I got an
posted something,
online
right?
academy. So if you go to shopconnorsma.com, all one word, ShopConnorsma, as in martial arts, or Massachusetts.com. You can buy all our academy gear, and you can
Including
pick,
this shirt?
including that shirt.
What about the other one, the louder one? Or
I
you've
don't have
sold
that. I
Sold
don't
out?
have that one, but we have a lot of gear on there. We have
Can you browse through
dozens.
what's
You
on
can
there?
browse. We get everything. Got the joggers, shirts, hoodies, sliders, etc. Everything, slides, everything. And I'm only going to add to it. And you can buy online and pick up at the academy, whatever you want to do. And we're going to be building that out. The other thing I wanted to give a shout out to was some of the recent promotions we had. So big promotions. Matt Dion got his brown belt. I don't think you know
Wow.
Matt. He's a very nice guy. He's got superb grappling
He's
and jiu-jitsu.
probably someone I'd know if I saw him. But
Yeah. He was an easy brown belt promotion. Very good, really technical guy, smart guy, great guy to train with, good training partner for everybody at the academy. My son got his purple belt, so very exciting.
That's big news, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
many of us know Rory.
So good. He just finished his 4th year of training with us.
And I have to say, too, that I felt like, what do you think about the quick aside that
Yeah.
I was like, I really wanted to be like, oh, it's about time. Rory. Like, we all know Rory deserved the purple belt. for him.
Okay.
Like, there can't be a single person in the world that would say Rory didn't deserve the purple belt.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if it's almost like, might seem unpleasant in a way to be like, long time deserved, you deserve, like, do you know what I mean? It's sort of like acting like you didn't. Is
It's
it
tricky.
My
Yeah.
question is it acceptable to just say something like say you said overdue? Would it be like, well, what do you mean overdue? I gave it to him at the right time. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. That's a little presumptuous maybe
Yeah.
to say that. I guess the best thing to
Well
say
deserved.
is well-deserved. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It is tricky because
everyone knows it's well deserved for Rory.
Yeah, definitely. And Rob Curran,
Oh,
super
yeah.
fan Rob Curran,
Speaking of well deserved,
got his blue belt. I have the pleasure and the honor of training with him on a regular basis at the academy. I just trained with him this morning, and we lock horns, smash heads. He's a great guy. He is a very good student of jiu-jitsu. He embodies and embraces that concept of process. He just comes and gets a little bit better all the time with deliberate practice. He's also
I
a
remember
member.
he had smashing side control like
Yeah,
8 months ago.
Yeah.
You know?
he's doing great, and he's another one of our law enforcement students, and I'm so proud to have those guys training with us, and I have so much respect for all of those guys. They do such a good job, and we're lucky to have guys like him in law enforcement because
Absolutely.
they're such reasonable guys. They're rugged guys. They're kind people. I know there's some faction of the world out there that doesn't have high opinion of law enforcement, but if they met the guys that train in our gym, they would change
Virtually
their opinion immediately.
All of them, right? Like,
All of them
I'm
are
running
great
through my
guys.
mind of all the law
Get
enforcement.
Dennis
that you-
Medina, who's a super fan. I get to train with him. He's doing awesome, doing really well. He's going to be competing soon for the first time. We got Javi and Luis Velasquez. They're great guys. Benny Linsky. Anthony Twining. He's got really good jiu-jitsu. He's a brown belt. Just a great guy. And they take their job serious, and they're in the academy not only for themselves to improve their own health and fulfillment or whatever, but it makes them better at their job. Steve O'Neill, he's a great guy,
Right.
good student,
These are all good
great
guys,
law
right?
enforcement guy. Yeah, we're really lucky.
And Pat, not as
Pat
much.
Browning,
Not as much,
Ye-
but
yeah, it's that's great too. They're all great.
yeah,
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. That's a lot of guys. It's a pretty big sample size, right?
they're great guys.
It's not like, oh, we happen to have one nice guy in law enforcement. It's like, well, look, we got a dozen guys in
Got
there.
a lot of them, and it's not easy to come in as law enforcement as a white belt and start from scratch. So there are guys that have healthy sense of ego where they can come in and be beginners and learn and develop themselves. And I'm really happy to have all those guys training with us, and all of us are happy to have them in that position out there.
And I think having them there, if someone's not training in law enforcement, it makes it comfortable to come in because, they're
Yeah.
not like I'm the one. You'll be
Right.
any class you go to, there's going to be 2 or 3 law enforcement in there who can talk
Maybe,
to you
yeah.
like I was where you were,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, and I think it'll make you better at your job. I encourage all of those guys, everyone, to come in. Yeah.
Well, just think, say there's a dozen guys, you can everyone would say it's a no-brainer that you should do it. Like for law
think
enforcement,
so.
every
Yeah.
single one. It's hard
Definitely.
though, but
It's hard. Yeah, that's the one thing about jiu-jitsu. It's, I love it, of course. I think anybody could benefit by doing it, but it's not easy. So
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. But the most rewarding things in life aren't easy. So and jiu-jitsu is definitely one of them. So hats off to those guys. The promotions are law enforcement students, and that's it. I think we've sounded a little less disagreeable at the end.
we tried to be nice at the end. We should say something else nice.
Yeah. I don't know.
Should we say something to undo it? It's like, my daughter got a puppy. He's cute.
I think
he's a
this.
cute
I
dog.
think this
I'm
was
trying
a
to-
good episode. Yeah, we covered a lot of ground,
I do love the puppies.
and you
I'm
must
trying
feel
to
better
I'm
after
trying to undo
you've
the
vented all that.
disagreeableness.
Yeah. You can't undo it.
I can't undo
So
it.
that's it. So thanks, folks. Please share this and tell your friends to listen, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.